Well, across the country, there are vigils tonight for the victims in El Paso and Dayton. Our next guest, a proud Texan, joins us from Austin, where one of those vigils is underway. Fox News contributor and former Deputy Chief of Staff under President George W. Bush, Karl Rove. Great to see you tonight, Karl.
Good to see you, Shannon.
We know the people of Texas are strong and resilient, but they've had to face a number of these shootings, a number of these situations. And now looking at the president's response today, you know, we were talking about the fact that whether he goes within an hour, whether he doesn't go, whether he speaks, whether he doesn't speak, I mean, there are going to be critics to no matter what this president does when there's an atrocity like this.
Oh, absolutely. And he made the right decision to go. Would have been a problem if he had not gone, but he went. He met with victims and first responders. This was not a day to go out and make a speech. This was a day to comfort people. And people have a right to protest, and they did so in both Dayton and El Paso. But I thought the president was doing exactly the right thing, and the pictures speak volumes about his reception both in Dayton and El Paso when he visited the medical facilities where people are struggling to recover.
Well, in Texas, Senator Ted Cruz, a Republican, of course, had a lot to say about how both sides need to calm down a little bit in the midst of what we're watching. I mean, Garrett just reported 21 more funerals to go in El Paso. I mean, that is a stunning number. Here's what Senator Cruz said.
I think everyone in the political arena needs to just ratchet down the rhetoric. It's fine to disagree on a policy issue or a substance issue, but the hateful and inflamed rhetoric that we see on both sides of the aisle, that is not good.
And Karl, honestly, it seems like to me it's gotten worse in the past 48 hours. What's your take?
Oh, I think it has. I've written about this for tomorrow's Wall Street Journal. I've been taken aback by how many Democrat candidates are basically saying the president is an accomplice to these murders in Dayton and in El Paso, about how he is responsible. In fact, the word responsible, the accusation that he is responsible, Cory Booker said it. So did Mayor Pete Buttigieg. So did Robert Francis O'Rourke, and also how this has been used politically. Think about this. Elizabeth Warren and Bernie Sanders both say the president is responsible and call him a racist, and then both of them send out fundraising emails drawing on these two massacres in El Paso and in Dayton. Elizabeth Warren to raise money for Democratic Senate candidates, and Bernie Sanders to ask people to sign a petition condemning President Trump, names that he would later solicit, I'm sure, for his campaign. And then this afternoon, Joe Biden went out and gave this speech, again incendiary, suggesting the president was directly responsible for those murders, and then immediately sent out a fundraising appeal based on his speech and his remarks. So, you know, talk about politicizing something that should never be politicized. These people are doing that. And what gets me is that, you know, look, think about this. Would we accuse Bernie Sanders of inciting the guy who tried to kill Republican House members and senators?
Almost killed Steve Scalise.
Almost killed Steve Scalise, shot a Capitol police officer, shot two other individuals at a baseball practice, and he turned out to be an ardent Bernie Sanders supporter and raged on the internet and in social media against Donald Trump's policies. Should we blame Bernie Sanders? Nobody in their right mind would suggest so. How about Elizabeth Warren? Turns out the guy in Ohio apparently was a fan of hers, was a self-proclaimed leftist, was a fan of Bernie Sanders, praised Antifa, again, attacked President Trump and his policies. Should we blame them simply because he was a supporter of theirs and a fan of theirs? No, obviously not. But that's where we've come in our society, and our politics is broken enough. This is not something that we should find acceptable for political candidates, particularly ones who are struggling down there and trying to get attention, to point the finger and say the President of the United States is directly responsible for somebody who has committed a heinous act in El Paso and a heinous act in Dayton, Ohio.
Yeah, and a lot of the folks that I talked to, and you in your article is excellent. People should read that tomorrow. I've seen the preview, but you know, most Americans out there say, throw the parties out. They just want a little bit of unity right now. That's really what they want to hear from people, that, you know, regardless of where they're personally coming from. So let's hope that we can get there on some of these things. Karl Rove, thank you very much.
You bet. Thank you.